Hello everyone. So it looks like Rogue has just solidified their exit out of group and that they're moving on to the knockout stage. So let's take a quick look at the game that solidified this result for them. I think in 95 or 96% of scenarios, Rogue is going out of the group. Now it might not be first seed, but they're destined to make it out of the group, or they're almost certain to make it out of the group unless they throw a game and then unless they go 0-3 and then lose the tiebreaker to top, they're going out of the group, or they're coming out of the group, right? I'm still of the belief that Rogue can choke if Top and DRX play well, but let's not get into that. I think Rogue have some weaknesses in the draft that can be exploited, but we will see. So the first thing that we're looking at in this draft is primarily we're seeing Yumi ban on red, which we're all happy about. We love seeing Yumi ban on red. The one thing I'm a bit confused about is Sylas ban on blue. I think Sylas has weaknesses as a champion. I don't think he should be prioritized as heavily as he is. What this Sylas ban, however, does indicate is likely the pick of an Azir in the middle lane for Rogue. We see a Lucian ban because Rogue apparently have been pretty good on Lucian Nami or something like that. I guess Top is scared of that. Don't really know what that should specifically indicate. The Lucian ban does, however, Rogue does also ban Draven, which Jakilov is kind of known for his Draven. He's played it quite a bit. He did play it in the game against DRX. He did lose that game, but still has shown that he likes to play it, and Draven as a champion is quite scary to face off against, I would say. Top Esports going with the Caitlyn ban, very standard. I think Caitlyn does have counters, but a lot of those counters come in the form of mages or in the form of Ashe or Varus. What I'm confused about is that there's no Varus ban in this game. I think Varus as a champion is super strong. I don't know why he's not banned this game. I think Varus can definitely be picked in either of these spots, but there are champions of more priority. Rogue finally bans Aatrox, which in my head screams that you're either playing Maokai or you're playing Ornn top lane, and you're just weak-siding your top for the rest of the game. And that is also what Odoamne is known for, right? So we're very likely to see a Maokai first pick here or an Azir first pick. I think Top Esports have two options. They either ban the Maokai, leave the Lucian open, or leave the Caitlyn open, and then go for a counter pick in that regard. For example, if you leave the Caitlyn open, you can try to play Ashe, you can try to play Varus, but Top has recently lost to Caitlyn, so maybe they're not comfortable leaving it open. But what would happen in that instance is if you don't ban both Azir and Maokai, Rogue will get one of the OPs, in which case you're just losing out, right? So what I think you should do if you're playing top here, or if you're Top Esports, I think you've already made a mistake in the draft judging by your bans, right? Because realistically speaking, Rogue is gonna get one OP champion, right? This will always happen. Blue side will always be able to get one OP champion, right? But what happens right after blue side picks up their first OP champion? Well, red side gets to pick up two OP champions. So your job as a red side draft coach is literally just to be like, okay, we will leave up three OP champions, and then we will just pick two of them. They only get one, we get two. So what you would do here is you will leave up probably Maokai, probably Lucian, and probably Azir. And you will now, if the enemy team here, if Odoamne picks Maokai, you go Lucian Azir here. Or Caitlyn Azir. I don't think you can leave up Yumi, because I think Yumi would probably take priority over Maokai, and I think Yumi is just such a champion, or like a game-warping champion, that I don't think she should be left open. I don't think this is something you can do with her, because I think she is so broken that you're actually willing to trade two OPs for a Yumi. That's how disgusting that champion is. So I don't think you can do that in that instance. But I think here you can very easily either not ban Caitlyn, or not ban Lucian, ban something else, like, I don't know, ban an Akali. Well, you're not scared of lost an Akali, but ban something. You can ban Victor, you can ban something, right? And then if they pick Maokai here, you respond with Lucian Azir. Caitlyn Azir. If they pick Azir here, cool, you respond with Maokai Lucian. Maokai Caitlyn. If they pick Lucian here, cool, you respond with Azir Maokai. Right? You have these options, and I think that's what should be happening in this draft. But let's move on, like, into the actual draft after the ban phase. Let's mute it. Or, well, we can lower it, I guess. Yeah, and we see the Maokai pick. Here, immediately we're thinking, well, Malrang, I don't think he plays a lot of Maokai. He definitely can play Maokai, though. You respond with Azir on R1, which I think is good. You pick Trundle as well. I think Trundle pick is coming out a little bit early because you're not sure if it's going to be Maokai jungle. Maokai can very likely go top lane. Odoamne is a Maokai player. He is a triple flex at this point. Top lane, jungle, and support. He can go all three. I think Trundle, as a response to Maokai, is decent in that it makes Trundle unkillable. But I don't think it's like an isolated counter, so I think you should try to look for more overpowered champions. But you don't really have anything else because you banned Caitlyn or Lucian earlier, right? So you're forced into it. Now what Rogue are probably thinking is, okay, so we have two options here. We have the Maokai, who can jungle, he can support, and he can top lane. We're likely gonna have to pick our mid laner here, on either 2 or 3, because enemy team has Azir. We're very likely gonna have to pick our mid laner. And then what we can do, we can pick our ADC. ADC pick here is completely fine, and then look to target ban AD carries. Support I don't think should be picked this early, just because support shows a lot of what your team composition is trying to do, especially in the bot lane. I think when you see Trundle here and when you see Victor, you have options. Either you decide to go for a team composition that's gonna dive in and try to fist fight with top esports. I don't know if that's exactly what you want to do, considering top esports are pretty like competent mechanically. If that was your intention, you would pick something like an Akali here, and then you would probably look for an AD carry, Kalista, Varus, probably Kalista here actually. You would probably look for Akali Kalista here, and you would just go in, and you would just fist fight, and you would just go. You would go in, right? What you could also do is you could pick, if you want to hide your mid laner, which you shouldn't really do because enemy team has already picked a Seer and they're going to ban you out. If you don't want to go for the super dive composition, what you can do here is you can pick Victor Varus and then look to ban out AD carries, or you can pick Victor Victor... Wait, what champion am I thinking of? Sorry, I'm brain farting. Victor and an AD carry. Misfortune, sorry. You can pick Victor as Misfortune here. Now, the problem with Misfortune is it's going to be pretty difficult to cast against Trundle. And she has, like, counters into her. And it's pretty difficult to pivot her into a situation where you can play her with an Enchanter as well, if the enemy team decides to go for more dive composition. What you could also do here, which is what I would expect out of most teams, is you just pick Victor Aphelios. Now, Aphelios is not going to be able to auto-attack the Azir. It's going to be difficult, which is fine. You're going to have to, like... Azir is going to outrange whatever you pick at this point. Unless you literally pick Xerath mid lane or Kog'Maw. I think Kog'Maw as a pick here is somewhat viable. The thing is, it's just scary against Trundle, right? But Kog'Maw mid here is playable. But you wouldn't pick it this early. Then you would hide your mid, you would pick your bot lane now, you would pick, like... Or you would pick, like... Amumu MF, you would pick Kalista Amumu, you would pick Kalista Nautilus, or you would pick Varus. What you could pick Varus Lulu, but you don't want to pick Lulu this early, you don't really want to show her. You probably couldn't pick your support if you're playing either Varus or Aphelios, because you want to hide that in case you need an Enchanter. So you would probably go... Like, if you're trying to play Kog'Maw mid, let's just think about this for a moment, right? Rogue wants to play Kog'Maw mid and try to fight top esports with range, which is certainly possible, by the way, because he does outrange Azir, and Kog'Maw can lane against Azir quite easily. The only thing that's scary is his shuffle, right? So you have to be a bit respectful of that. But what he basically needs is just to get to level 11 and get to 2 items, and then Kog'Maw will do more than Azir in fights. And you already have a Maokai who can function in 2 ways. He can either be disengage or engage with zone control and his ult, right? So this can shape up to be a disengage kind of composition where the enemy team needs to dive onto you. If you're playing something like a Kog'Maw, right? If you pick Kog'Maw here, the enemy team will pick champions that try to dive onto you. So what you could do as well, not that you would pick Kog'Maw this easily, but if you're expecting to play Kog'Maw, is you would pick champions that are good when the enemy team dives into you, right? Which would be an Aphelios. And then it could be something like Renata here. You would play Aphelios Renata knowing that later your Kog'Maw is going to come in, and the only way to beat your Kog'Maw is by fully diving into the team. But now you're diving into Maokai, Aphelios, and Renata, and that's going to be a struggle, right? And Kog'Maw is going to take over the game. I think the problem is a lot of draft coaches do not consider this, that they can pick champions that they will just win, right? Like, Kog'Maw will outrange this guy. He will outrange Azir, he will outrange Trundle, he will outrange anything. The way you beat Kog'Maw primarily is you dive onto him. You beat him in lane and you dive onto him, right? or you make sure that he can't take space. You make it very hard for him to play, right? Now, what do we do to prevent them from being able to dive onto us? How do we remove one of their win conditions? Well, we pick anti-dive champions. What are anti-dive champions we can pick in the bot lane? Renata, Aphelios, both super good against dive. They demolish anything that dives. You can pick Varus as well, also kind of okay against dive. But yeah, that's what I think should be happening here. That's what could be happening on the rogue side of things right now. Let's see what they actually end up electing to go for. I'm pretty sure they're just going to play Victor. I've seen the game, right? Kalista Victor, yeah. I'm not super happy about that situation. I don't like picking Victor into Azir. I think you're just signing up to lose lane and then eventually get outscaled. Azir will just do more than you. He has more options. I don't like this handshake that's going on in the moment in mid lane against Azir where you play Victor. Because Azir will shove in the Victor. Azir will have gank pressure on the Victor. And Azir will do more in fights than Victor as well during the later stages if played correctly, right? Victor can actually do... It's a bit disingenuous saying Azir will do more in fights, but yeah, it's equal how much they do in fights during the later stages. I think Victor can do more, but he's, yeah, harder to do stuff with. We pick Maokai here on top side, which is, or Maokai, sorry, we pick Gnar here into Maokai, which is the biggest griefer moment I've ever seen in my career as a coach. I'm pretty sure the only reason they pick this is because they're like, Wayward is comfortable on Gnar. Looks like the enemy is playing Kalista, so we're gonna have to weak side top lane as well and try to prevent our bot lane from getting Dova on repeat in case they pick a Mumu or Nautilus here and just try to go for heavy bot side focus. We need to have a top laner that can somewhat be self-sufficient and doesn't need help. But Gnar is just into Maokai. It's a losing matchup, right? It's weird. People have this misconception that range champions that can run down Maokai are good against him, but Maokai doesn't care if you're ranged. If you hit him, he will W you, and he will stick to you. It is very difficult to kite a Maokai when he gets a bit of CDR, because his cooldowns are so low. He will be able to stick on you. Like, he will be able to W Gnar if he ever tries to auto-attack him. Like, Odoamne ends up winning this lane super hard. I'm pretty sure Knight misplays it as well, but it's not a good matchup for Gnar. It just isn't. It's not a good matchup. I don't know why you pick it. If I'm thinking Chinese players, oh, fuck, we can play Fiora. Yeah, we'll play some Fiora. We can play Camilla. Yeah, let's get some dive going on here. Oh, we can even play Ornn into Maokai. It's bad, but Ornn is good into the enemy team composition. Look, you have a Victor. Ornn is going to be pretty good against that. And Ornn works as disengage as well, because the enemy team is going to pick full dive. Like, if you want a champion in this spot as well, by the way, that is gonna be good against the rogue team composition, even something like a Karma top lane can work. Now, why can it work? Because the enemy team is gonna dive onto you. You're diving into a Karma that's gonna ult-E you, or ult-E her team. And you have Karma Trundle, which is actually a pretty annoying lane. And that now opens up for the possibility of you playing Aphelios and Varus, and not needing an Enchanter AD carry. You can pick something like a not AD carry, sorry, support. You can pick something like a Leona. I think Karma has opened up here, Fiora has opened up, you have a lot of options. You can even play Gragas if you want some sort of disengage. Now that is also a losing matchup and you're not going to be able to punish the Maokai, and Maokai is eventually going to become unkillable. But don't pick Gnar. Just don't. Gnar here sucks. You have so many other options that should be played. My favorite one of them being Karma. I think Karma would be sick here as a top lane, but it's just not going to get picked, sadly. But yeah, we pick Gnar, we fucking FF15, we just move on. In terms of bans, if you're on top esports side now, you're thinking combos with Kalista. Okay, well, we likely have to target supports. It's going to be very difficult for us to target junglers in case Maokai ends up getting pivoted into the jungle and they pick a counter into Gnar. We can target junglers and assume that Maokai is going to be running top lane because it is a good matchup into the Gnar. It would be stupid of Rogue to try to pivot him into the jungle. So we can actually also target junglers because you have a good matchup top lane. What could you realistically be picking jungle that would be like better? Or what could you realistically get top lane that would be a better matchup that could justify you pivoting Maokai into the jungle? There's likely not really anything, unless Odoamne all of a sudden has become a fucking Irelia god, which, even Irelia on this current patch, not that great. So you're likely just going to be playing Maokai top lane. So you can assume that this is going to be a Maokai top lane, because it is a good matchup into the Gnar, and you're not going to be getting any bigger advantages by pivoting Maokai into the jungle, right? So it's going to be Maokai top lane. Okay, well, we know that, so we're going to be banning supports here, and we're going to be banning junglers here, okay? What supports are good with Kalista? Renata is decently good, Amumu's good, Nautilus is good, champs that dive in are good, and champions that can keep Kalista somewhat alive are good. Renata is just a unique combo for her, right? So Renata ban is justifiable. What Renata ban screams to me on the top side, though, is you're gonna be playing champions that dive into the enemy team compositions, but you have a fucking Gnar here that's not really gonna do anything, but it's fine. Because Rogue is gonna dive into you, right? Renata, I think, is a misunderstood ban here, I think I should call it. I think you're misunderstanding what Rogue has to do with their team composition. Rogue at the moment is the one being forced to dive into you. Unless they can take control of space around an objective with Maokai and then somehow force you to come into them, in which case you're gonna lose anyway. Doesn't matter if the enemy team has Renata. If you're coming into Victor Maokai with your team composition at the moment, you're likely going to be losing regardless. So you need to be on the objective first, because if you allow these champions to control the space first, you're likely going to be in a lot of trouble, right? Which is why Maokai is so obnoxious, by the way, because Maokai just allows you to take control of a space for free. You have to get hit, or you have to leave it, or you're going to get CC'd by it, right? That's why Maokai is such an obnoxious champion at the moment as well. Renata ban, it's fine. Could be better. Aphelios ban is really, really good on the Rogue side. They recognize the enemy team's win condition at this point, or they recognize the weaknesses of their own team composition, which is anti-dive AD carries with very high damage that can free hit. Aphelios, the top of that list. Aphelios' weakness, right, is that he cannot consistently hit. But if you're coming into him, then he can consistently hit, and he will deal a lot of damage. So good of Rogue to recognize that. I really like that. What else are we looking at on the Rogue side? Other AD carries, other anti-dive things. Varus is not really anti-dive. Ezreal, but you're not really going to be picking Ezreal into this enemy team comp with a straight face, are you? I suppose you could if you're Jackie Love. But yeah. I like the Aphelios ban a lot, like it a lot. I think at this point, on the top side, you probably ban another support. You probably throw a Nautilus ban out there. Yeah, you probably throw a Nautilus ban or an Amumu ban out there. I think that would be completely reasonable. I think both are completely fine. You could ban jungle as well. You could ban Jarvan. Jarvan ban. I don't know how necessary it is. If you want to play in a mobile AD carry, I suppose it's fine. If you want to be playing something like a Sivir, depending on what Rogue picks here on 4-5, I suppose you can ban the J4 in case you want to play Varus or Sivir, so that's justifiable. You know Malrang plays it a lot, that's fine. I don't mind that ban at all. I think on the Rogue side, your Tristana ban, I don't really like. I guess this could be a spot where you as Rogue recognize that the enemy has so few options left on how to win the game except for relying on Azir, that if the game just plays out naturally, you're likely to win, so you just want them to not have psycho champions, like Tristana. Tristana being one of the most psycho AD carries you can pick, right? What are we looking here at Top Esports? What are we thinking here whenever we look at this team comp? Rogue team composition is likely to dive into you. We need a support that can either pivot in case they decide to play a lot of range here, or that works as anti-dive. We don't really have a whole lot. You could pick the AD carry here as well. You're likely not going to be playing Ezreal in case the enemy team decides to just go full dive. Ezreal is kind of too slow, I think. You could end up with something like an Ezreal Braum, but I think at that point you're probably just begging to lose the game into Kalista, I would have to imagine. I think you could play... I think you just have to pick Varus, but it doesn't look very pretty into Kalista, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I don't mind Ezreal pick here either. I don't know how good it is in lane. Yeah, there's the Varus. I think Varus is completely reasonable. It's going to be hard for you to hit. I think you could go Sivir here as well if you really want to. But if you go Sivir, you're inviting Trimby, who actually has a very, very nice champion pool, in the fact that he can play a lot of these enchanters and mages, and if you lock in Sivir and Trinby decides now's the time to play Lux, or now's the time to play Soraka, or now's the time to play any of these champions, you're probably gonna be in a bit of pain. Personally, from experience and playing support as my secondary role, I think Soraka really demolishes Sivir in lane. It's very difficult for her to play the game, because Soraka will just walk up. Doesn't matter if Sivir tries to hit her. Soraka will just slap a Q on you. Yes, Sivir will spell shield it, and then what do you do in 5 seconds when Soraka Qs up again and your spell shield's still on 10-second cooldown? Can't really do anything, right? And Trinby is known for being able to play these enchanters, so I think this is a good ban, or I think this is a good choice not to pick Sivir. Surely it's not Lee Sin, right? Do we have other champions? We have other champions, right? We're playing into Trundle. You can play Olaf here. You have support left open as well. Look at the enemy team composition. They're all squishy and mobile. You can literally slam an Olaf here, and then you just play Olaf with an enchanter. And then you're just zooming. You can play Olaf Kama here. You can just slam Olaf Kama, and you're probably smiling. I think Olaf Kama is going to be very useful here. I don't know why it's not picked. Don't know if you can play Hecarim here. I think Hecarim actually also looks fine. He's not banned either. Hecarim is going to be super good against these 3 champions. He's not going to be super good against Trundle, but he's going to be really good against these 3 because he can just get on top of them for free and fist fight, and he can kind of start the fight for his team, or he can follow up. Like, he can... Yeah, there are just better options than Lee Sin is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can pivot into Olaf Kama here if you want to and try to run the enemy team down, or you can just pick Hecarim here. And then you can pick whatever you want as support, and Mumu, some more dive. Because at this point, it's going to be very hard for top esports to pivot into enough anti-dive. If you pick a Mumu. But I don't like the Lee Sin. I don't like the Lee Sin at all. The problem is you just have a dead pick here. Like, you have a dead Gnar pick here that just screwed up the entire draft, where you would have wanted Aphelios instead. Rakan with Kalista? Soraka. Oh no, it ends up being Rakan, right? Yeah, I don't like Rakan Kalista. I don't think it's a combo that should be played at all. Yeah, I just don't really like it. I think maybe Trimby knows the enemy team so well that he's like, okay, if I pick Rakan here, I know the LPL well enough. They're gonna pick Leona here. They're not gonna pick any of the anti-dive champs. They're not gonna pick Janna. Oh shit, what do we do if we're playing 3 diving champions against Janna? Oh, I think we might as well just fucking cry ourselves to sleep, right? I think he knows well enough that they're not going to be playing any of the anti-dive champions. I don't know how viable Syra is at the moment, but Syra is also super good as an anti-dive champion. Kama works decently as an anti-dive champion. I think you have a lot of options here on the top esports side, but Trimby might be so aware of how the enemy team drafts, or maybe the rogue coach is so aware of how the enemy team drafts that he's like, I can get away with a Rakan pick here because it will induce them to pick Leona instead of something that counters our team composition, despite the fact that Rakan Kalista kinda sucks as a lane. But you could also play Ashe here if you wanted to as Trimby, by the way, which would be super funny. The problem is you would just run into a Chinese Leona and you would probably hate your life a bit, or a Chinese Amumu, or a Chinese Nautilus, which would also be a bit tough. But yeah, I don't think Rakan should be picked here. I don't think Lee Sin should be picked here. I think there are much better options than what you're picking. On the support side, you have better diving champions. You have Amumu, you have Nautilus, you have these types of champions. I don't think Rakan is super good against Kalista or with Kalista either. He's not strong enough in the lane to actually help her gain lane dominance. And it's not like he's going to be super valuable in these fights because you don't have any primary engage, and Rakan usually doesn't function as primary engage. He follows as more of a follow-up when your team takes space, and then he like engages from that space that your team has taken, like your front line has taken. So I don't know that I like the Rakan pick here. Ends up working out for Rogue, but I don't think it's good. Leona. Karma is good, but it ends up being Leona, obviously. Karma is good in the way that, I think it ends up being Leona, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it does. It's Mark Leona. I remember memeing about this while watching the game. Karma is good in the sense that the enemy team is all gonna be diving into you, right? And Karma can function as a pseudo form of anti-dive in that she can press R and then she can press E and her entire team becomes a Ferrari right? Like, you just have 5 Ferraris on the Rift now, and they can sort of counteract the engage of Rogue. Yeah. The reason that you would want disengage on the side of top esports here is Rogue is all gonna dive into you. The only champion that does not dive into you here, Victor, right? Victor's the only champion that can do anything at range. On top esports, however, you have Azir that can do something at range, and Azir can do considerably more than Victor can at range. So if you pick Karma here and you allow Victor to do his thing at range, you allow Varus to do his thing at range, even Gnar can sort of play at range. He can't really, let's be honest. But the Rogue, or the Rogue team composition wants to dive into you, so what you want to do is you want to disengage and prevent them from diving onto you, and then letting your Azir and Varus deal damage while you're at a standoff, right? That's what you want. You want to prevent them from being able to get on top of you, because if they get on top of you, if Rogue gets on top of you, they will CC lock you until you die. This will just happen. They have so much CC and so much dive that you, like, well, dive, they have like inconsistent dive in Lee Sin, CC in the form that Lee Sin can flash kick you. They have a lot of CC on the Maokai, they have a lot of CC on the Rakan, right? So when they finally get on top of you, I will admit their champion is not good at getting on top of you. Lee Sin is not necessarily good at getting on top of you. Rakan is not necessarily good at getting on top of you compared to other champions of that same nature. But if they do get on top of you, you will die. So you should just pick something that makes it harder for them to get on top of you. Karma works just fine. Janna works really, really well. Janna should be slammed here. Unfortunately, she's not. So yeah. And now I think at this point, I would still favor top esports to win the game. Just because I think Varus can still do stuff at range, and I think Azir can still do stuff at range. I think Azir will be better at range than Victor will be. And you should have enough tools. Well, you should have some tools to prevent Rogue from diving onto you, just because their champions are not necessarily good at getting on top of you unless you make mistakes. For example, Lee Sin and Rakan are not good at getting on top of you unless you miss position. So yeah, I think in this regard, top should still be somewhat favored, and top also just have better players in my opinion. Top do end up losing the game, and they end up looking very, very lost in the game. Like it's not like Rogue is playing outstandingly well. Rogue is not punishing mistakes that top are making in the game, if I recall correctly. Top are making a lot of mistakes that are going unpunished. But top just makes so many mistakes that Rogue eventually find a way to win. Like, Rogue eventually just win. Just because top grieves so hard that Rogue just wins. That's what ends up happening in this game. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the draft video, and have a good one. See ya.